Hi guys, gals and gamers. I'm your resident gaming guide and welcome to my review of the horror game Still Wakes the Deep. I'll pass you over to me. Enjoy. The game I'm thrilled to be talking about today is Still Wakes the Deep, the newest title from The Secret and the Chinese Room, quite a few rooms. Known best for their amnesia title of The Pork Persuasion and other less scary walking simulators like Dear Esther or Everyone's Gone to the Rapture. But before any of you go to the Rapture, everyone ought to try this game. Now this is a horror game, not for the faint of heart or hand. So if you're afraid of oil rigs, the Scottish, or tentacles, I'd suggest backing out now. Oh, you're still here? Fab. So you're probably wondering what you're getting yourself into with this game, and as luck would have it, I'd be delighted to tell you. You play as the cheeky chappie with a heart of gold, Kaz McCleary. He finds work on the hastily put together oil rig thanks to his good friend Roy, the resident chef on deck. We find out early on that Kaz has had some kind of run-in with the police, but even in his efforts to evade them, they found him in the middle of the ocean. When the hot-headed and reprehensible Rennick kicks him off his rig, Kaz must return home and face his consequences. Or so he thought. An explosion, a mistake with the drill, has catapulted something new and alien out of its supposed slumber and onto the rig. It's now up to Kaz and any remaining survivors to try and escape the rig, navigating its shoddy infrastructure and other dangerous things. So this is a great, super simple, super fun story. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, not one bit. And it's actually refreshing to just experience it without any detours or the game sending you off in any different direction. If you just look at some of the studio's previous work, as I mentioned, Amnesia, Machine for Pigs, or Everyone's Gone to the Rapture, it becomes quite clear. Both of these games have really unique storytelling, where the story is more embedded in the notes, maybe the audio diaries and the environmental storytelling. Now, this is a great device in of itself, and really, if you're really into the game, it will have you pouring through all the side content to try and build the overall story. And again, there's nothing wrong with this either. I just personally like the fact that this game kind of wears everything on its sleeves and just allows you to enjoy it. You know, more often than not with maybe some of these horror games, it will leave you at the end going, I'm not too sure who they were, I'm not too sure what happened, I don't know if I'm even alive. It leaves you with questions, is what I'm trying to say. But not to give anything away, but this game is more of, I knew exactly what I was doing, I knew where I was going, and when the game ended, I didn't really have any questions. It was pretty cut and dry. But there's nothing wrong with that. And quite ironic considering it's on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. Cut and dry. Jokes aside, I don't want to give away any big story details, but what I can say is the game kicks off very quickly, and you're very soon into the action. Like it doesn't take long to kick off. As for the characters, there are a lot. You're introduced to almost all of them in the opening 20 minutes as you explore the rig, and it's done really naturally. It's nice to see how well connected and community oriented the rig is, with everyone knowing everyone. Sure, there are only a handful of them that are fleshed out significantly more than the others, but knowing their names, faces, and voices feels a lot more palpable than you coming across nameless nobodies. It's just a shame that you might get to know their screams as well. Someone Kaz is significantly closer to is Roy, whose relationship, unless I missed it and it's incredibly obvious, isn't explicitly stated. But their chemistry is brilliant, and whilst it's not clear if he's simply just a family friend, a brother, or his wife's father, you can tell that they're very close, and whatever relationship they may have, blood or not, it doesn't really matter. Roy, over the course of the game, succeeds in bringing out the best in Kaz, and is shown to do so in his earlier life by trying to stick up for him, and especially by landing him the job and supporting him through his wrongdoings with the police. The only other characters you kind of have direct contact with is, we said Rennick at the start, who's kind of the rough boss there and really doesn't like Kaz, as well as Finley and Brody, But these are more working relationships. They're there because they have to be. I would say in this game, if I was going to compare it to anything, you're like Isaac Clarke in Dead Space, but you have no idea what you're doing. You're constantly at the mercy of Finley and Brody and other characters telling you what needs to be done, because you're the only one that can reach it, and they have to guide you from the other end. Which is an interesting direction to take something like this, and it kind of makes you go on these sort of errands and sort of tasks in a natural way without it feeling too forced. The game itself runs and looks really good. Well, I say good. As good as the beauty of destruction and intense body horror looks good, so dealer's choice. The environments are honestly breathtaking and gives a real sense of scope. Just looking out into the vast ocean and the size of the rig itself really makes you feel very small and isolated. Not to mention, each area is rich in environmental storytelling. Blood, gore, and dead bodies are quite the storytellers, it would seem. But this game has a lot of spectacle to it as well, especially when becoming enamoured with the alien structure that is struck when drilling. I found myself just trying to find the best angles of it, you know. Especially there are some scenes in the game where it's like almost biblical. It's beautiful. It honestly is. As well as this, when you're exploring the rig, it's like you're seeing it from a different angle every time. Like, it's different. Especially when, say you're ascending up the stairs and you're just like looking down inwards and you're like, whoa, this is massive. And then you look at everything else from the outside and you go, this is massive as well. But then you get in a small tiny little room and you go, this is so small. This is the smallest thing I've ever seen. So it constantly keeps you guessing as well. So the monsters, the baddies, the aliens. Every great horror game's got one, in whatever form that may take. The monsters here rear their ugly heads fairly early on. Notably with the first time we squeezed past a fellow rig worker gone mad, Gibbo. This first interaction I feel like is handled perfectly, as we move through the underbelly of the rig, forced to squeeze through and past machinery to awkwardly move through this area unconventionally. All the while, somewhere in the room we hear Gibbo crying out in pain, ranting over his condition and begging us for help. We catch a very small glimpse of him, now having abandoned his human form for some kind of weird mass of flesh. I think this first interaction was brilliant, as our vision is extremely limited, constantly in fear of something creeping out or jumping out at us, and not being able to fully pinpoint him as the sounds of his cries echo round in this large room. I was just happy to be out there, to be completely honest. The second time we actually get to see one of these mounds of flesh shows off the interest of these creatures. Another crewmate stalks the laundry room in accommodation and shows off the tentacled nature of these creatures, able to spring around the room and zoom across the floor like some weird kind of menacing pink Roomba. It's clear to see that these creatures also kind of retain somewhat of a small part of themselves, like they can still speak, they still have the same kind of mannerisms, especially when we first stumble into this room. He's trying to shut the washing machine, just over and over, repeating actions maybe they've done before. But now that we've spoken about the things chasing us, let's talk about the gameplay. Let's talk about how we get away. It's mostly comprised of exploration, kind of walking around the rig, moving from objective to objective and doing small little tasks like maybe fixing an elevator or just mantling down the rig itself. There's this new fun kind of grip system as well. Not anything too exciting, if I'm completely honest, where you have to sort of hold down another button in order to grip onto, say, a ladder or some climbable objects. Now, this isn't intense when you're just moving around just to the next part of the game, but you will occasionally have quick time events where the game will surprise you to try and maintain your grip on, say, a shaky surface. I did think it was cool, but didn't feel like it added to the whole experience as a whole. The bulk of the gameplay then is this sort of cat and mouse-esque gameplay, with you sort of inching around these small areas trying to stay out of the sight of the enemies. What I really like about this is the unforgiving nature of the stealth, the monster's movement, and the detection radius in which you can sort of see where they are without actually poking your head out to have a look. Now, for some modern horror games, let's say Outlast, for instance, the game kind of gives you a little bit of leeway in when you're discovered how quickly you will die. So in Outlast, for instance, it's on about the normal difficulty, you can get smacked about a couple times just by a normal enemy, which gives you plenty of time to retreat, run away, get out of sight, and just get back to doing whatever you were trying to do. But this game is a lot more unforgiving, and I think that's great, actually. So basically, if you are spotted, you will pretty much die. Which I think lends itself to the game as well, and just how it's designed. Because these aren't massive open spaces you're trying to get through. They're quite small, with the creatures instead filling up a lot of the space. So you haven't got to get too far. So obviously when you die, it's not as much of a pushback. Or it doesn't feel as bad because you haven't got to go so far. Let's move on to the detection radius then, and how this game handles it. The detection radius is designed to help locate the enemy, and is displayed in a really interesting way. Whenever you come into contact with any of these alien-like structures, like these walls of like, I don't know, RGB, like tentacle things, you get this weird kind of pixelation on the screen. What I could only describe as sort of what you'd see out of like a hellish microscope. This same kind of device is used when you're encountering a monster or an enemy. This kind of weird pixelation will cross your screen, aligning with where the enemy is. So in a subtle and not intrusive way, the game will describe to you, right, the monster's over there. That's when kind of the other diversion mechanic comes in. There'll just be loads of stuff on the floor that you can sort of just pick up, throw in the other direction to distract them, to then inch away to another little hole where you can hopefully find another item, and then retreat to whatever your next objective is. The only kind of gripe I had with this system is that sometimes it's a little awkward to pick up an object and throw it. So what's the final verdict? I really enjoyed the game. I think it's a great addition to the collection of horror games that the Chinese and the Secret Room have worked on respectively. It's a good horror game with an easy story to get stuck into, and you can even finish it in about, say, 5-6 hours if you're quick, if you just sprint all the way through it. With the combined efforts of the monsters, the characters, the world building, and the set pieces, this is enough to elevate it above your standard horror game, I'd say. I hadn't even touched on the fact that the game is Scottish, with so many great quirky like one-liners. The humour is brilliant, especially seeing the game trying to translate some of the Scottish dialect and some of their phrases into normal English. It's quite funny to see it try and do as well. I would definitely say it's worth checking out if you're, say, an Amnesia fan, like an early horror kind of fan, or just if you quite like horror in general. I've already spoke about the small gripes I had with it. Those are the only really problems I had. Otherwise, I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to anyone who would like to play and is interested by the gameplay and what I've spoken about. Hey, welcome back to me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know it's a bit spotty, but it is my first one, so please be kind. If you'd like to see more like this, I'd love it if you wanted to subscribe, like, comment, just tell me how I did, tell me if you liked the game or if you didn't like it. And hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.